up because if you look at it, the Bundesbank, that turned into the Euro Bank, or whatever they call, right? The bank or Euro. So that was all about Germany getting all these extra customers all using the same currency. So instead of having 60 million or whatever, 70 million Germans with the Deutschmark, all of a sudden they get a bigger group of people. They get about 200 or 300 million people using the same currency. That makes it easier, more cost efficient and better for the Germans to send all their Mercedes, their Volkswagens, all their goods, their manufacturing stuff all over the place. But then what that did was it handicapped all the rest of the countries, which were at the time when the economies were all fine and dandy and all the money's flowing about. But as soon as that money dried up, you soon see that these countries are now tied in to the same economy as Germany, so they have to use the same interest rates, and they have to use everything the same fiscal policy, but because they're in a different platform for Germany, i.e. they're no the manufacturing base, then now they're losing out, and because they're tied to it and then they're ham-fisted. Now, if Scotland was to stay with the pound, initially, if we were to go down our own fiscal road, and after a period, that same thing could happen to us. But I mean, it could happen to us, say, in 2 years, 5 years, because if Scotland was to go independent, then England, if we were to start to pull away, then we have got a choice then to make. We could say, well, we don't have to be part of the pound once we've got independence, and I think this is the way it'll go, because it'll be too much for too much to happen right away. Because even if they sat down, the English down there, the government would say, look, it's too much for us to comprehend and deal with the new. So why don't we just put this and deal with it in 5 years, 10 years? Because they would say maybe it's better waiting till we get independent established in Scotland and then independence for England. And once we've got that sorted, I think that's what's going to happen. Because see, something is so heavy as the money, because all these countries that had to move in to the euro and all that, they were all years and years and years in planning. So even if we get a yes in September, I would imagine there would be no proper decision made for 5-10 years. But the beauty is now, see with all these cryptocurrencies, there's all these currencies, Bitcoin, I don't know if you've heard of that, but these currencies that are developing now, the technology is there, made ever so easy, that we could distance ourselves from the pound and the English pound at a stroke, and it wouldn't be too bad. It would then mean that we become possible competition with England, but it would mean that it would be true independence eventually. I mean, if we get independence now, it's not going to be true independence until possibly we have our own currency and we're creating our own tax. And then once that is, I can't see anything stopping Scotland making a good fist of it, because the thing that I think handicaps us now is the size of Britain. See, the bigger the countries are, 60, 70, 80 million, they've got tremendous problems dealing with all the social effects of, the housing. And you look at England, you go down to London and the amount of people down there, you can't move. I mean, I was down there a few months ago and I was stuck in a traffic jam for about 3 hours, and I was only going for about 6-7 miles across part of London. And my mate's like, well, this is all the time. This isn't anything special. This is probably it good. And it's just too many people are down there. And I think the problem with Britain is that we've got too many people to make it a success. And if we were managed to distance it, a country of 5 million, and Salmon goes on about the oil, and England will be entitled to a bit of it, but I think that if we had our own oil and we had our own destiny to control, then it might be tough, but it's tough than now, I think, for a lot of people who are surviving in food banks and are on the breadline, so it's tough for a lot of people than now. I don't think it can get any worse than what it is.
The main thing about this whole vote in September is, it's the people that are pushing for it, like the SNP. I know it's not. It doesn't matter who's going to be in power if they get the referendum. You know what I mean?
I can't stand the SNP myself. I don't know what your opinion is. I just
can't stand the two of them.
No, Sturgeon either.
Because it's just it's so false, them, and I just can't. I've got to distance myself away from that all the time, and I know I think about that when I think of Scotland on its own, I think of them, and that's probably
frightening.
I think it's stuck in my head, and that's what's one of the things that's really put me off it.
Well, see that one as well, because as I say, I've never voted myself. I'm 42 myself, and I actually left Scotland to go down to England to work because I was turning 18 in the poll tax and I had a few months to spare and I had no jobs. It was Thatcher's Britain 1990, and I just had enough of the way. So I've never voted anybody, and the actual thought of Salmond being there and Sturgeon and the stuff that they've got, the only thing that has made me think about it, and a lot of people have said, I hear them saying, it's not about Salmond, it's not about the SNP, it's about independence. And I think that these people, the SNP, because they've campaigned so long for the independence, that once the independence comes, they have no longer got that to campaign. So what does the Scottish Nationalist Party represent? And I think that every one of them in there would just disintegrate it, because I think maybe Salmond, once he's there for a term or whatever, that's him, his legacy's made. Nicola, maybe she might go and her legacy's made, because they'll be going down as the people who got Scottish independence. And I think that that's the beauty of it, because the Tories and the Labour and the Liberals, I think that Scotland could invent a new political structure. And I'm only hoping and I'm thinking that, well, if this one thing with the SNP, and as I say, I've no truck with them, I can't stand them, and probably yourself, they're a joke, a couple when you see them, I think, is this the best we've got? Well, I think that if Scotland, if you go back, the first election we had, they called it a rainbow coalition. I know it was Tommy Sheridan, but there was independents, there was Greens. I think if we got our own country, then Scotland would be radical, because the Parliament's designed, it's not a first past the post, it's designed to let a minority government. I mean, how they managed to get a majority when it's not designed that way was a miracle in itself. But I think they couldn't repeat that trick, because they'll become split up. The party, people will say, we want to go this, we want to do that. And I think we would get a real different political landscape that people who have not stood before, who thought about doing it, would say, well, we've got a real chance to get elected, because we only have to get this amount, whereas the first party past the post, we would never get it. And I think we could slide back into a place where, well, we're not going to be ruled by Tories ever, we're not going to be maybe ruled by Labour, and we're not going to be ruled by SNP. So what do we get? We might get independents, we might get Greens, we might get local socialist Scottish people, or I don't know, the right Raven Rooney Party, or whoever it was. But I think we can make our own political structure. I don't know.
Worse anyway, could it?
I can't, exactly, because I can't vote for any of these people they know, because I look at them saying, well, I don't want to vote for this one, I don't want to vote for that one. Who can I vote for? And there's nobody there. So.
See, I worked in the railway for 20 odd years, and I was a unit executive with the railway. And at that time, when I was in the railway, it was you were all dealt. It was Labour this, Labour that, and Labour next time, and that's how it was in AD's skin.
Aye.
And it's sort of drifting away now, obviously, but it's took a long time to change that.
Aye.
But as I say, I really don't know, because the answers I want is not getting answered, and the simple things like they seem to be, they're arguing about, if Mr. Cameron wants to come up, who cares? That's what I said at the start. Like, who cares if he doesn't want to come up and talk? Ken, we're not interested.
Superficial. Aye.
We're wanting to know what it's going to benefit us. Everybody, an individual, wants to know what they're going to get out of it. No, I'm not caring what my next door neighbour's going to get out of it. I want to know what I'm going to get out of it. Sort of thing.
Right.
Ken, is it going to benefit me? Because if it's not going to benefit me, well, it's going to be no. The other thing was allowing people to vote for 16. I mean, that's just, in my opinion, it's crazy. Because, they're not even at work. They're not. Why should they have a say in what's running the government when they're not even left the school?
Well, it shows you how clever and canny the SNP are. I mean, they might not like them.
That was one of their plans, wasn't it?
Aye, they might not like them, but
they could get it, and they would get it in there.
Aye, because they're trying to gerrymander it without getting called gerrymandering, but I might as well call it out. They're gerrymandering it because...
Exactly. What next? I mean, before September, are we going to allow all this, i.e. the prisoners, to have their vote? They wanted, Ken. Oh, only in Scotland? Aye, give them a vote. Because, as they say, they're allowing this all to happen because they're in power at the moment, and they're allowing all these changes to happen, and they're being seen as the goody two-shoes with all these young people, and they say, oh, if I can get a vote, I can do this and I can do that. And they don't know what they're actually doing, Ken. I mean, as I say, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place where...
Aye. I hear what you're saying.
My heart says aye, my head says no, sort of thing.
Aye.
If you know what I mean.
Well, I always go with my heart. My head, because my head's made too many decisions, and if my heart's saying to me, this feels right, but my head's saying, oh, put this doubt in it, it's because, well, the negative side has always been saying, oh, well, hold off. But
aye.
If you look to inside, what you think is right is your instinct, your natural instinct. But I mean, if you just came back to there, I mean, the reason why they've done the 16-year-olds is, I think anyway, because the youngsters, you've got a chance that they'll be more patriotic, they've not got as much baggage, and they'll not be looking at it as a case of, that we're talking about it, the pros and cons. They'll just think, well, why is Scotland no independent? Oh, here, let's go for it. And they don't know, 30, 40 years of history. So maybe he's looked at it and says, we'll get about 70 or 80%, so get the 16-year-olds. And then if you look what he's doing, he would probably lose the election if he turned around and said, well, all the Scots in England, if you wanted to vote, and he probably looked at that and he's probably done surveys, all the people down there, probably about 70 or 80% would vote no. So that's probably why he's excluded them, brought the youngsters in, and and done it like that, because there'd probably be no hope. I mean, if you see the stuff, the new, and the people that I've phoned, probably ranks that people are still, there's people are saying yes, and then there's people are saying no, and then there's the ones who are in between who, like we're sitting talking, who think, well, it could be good, but then it might be problems, and we're counting the problems up and saying, and it's a balance of probabilities, and whatever you're going to have to take to the, the polling booth is what we're going to have to make the decision. Do we listen to our heart and go with, and throw caution to the wind, because that's what I think that is needed for Scotland to do it. I've got my doubts that we can vote independence, and that's why I'm trying now, because I'm thinking, well, if even just for one person can go out and tell another 10 people, or tell another 10 people, that right, it might have the effect that, well, it might work. If it doesn't, then at least I know that I've tried something myself personally, because I think that too long that we've had too much taken away from us, in the sense that we can't make...
We've always lived in a shadow.
That's right.
For years and years, we know that we've always lived in England's shadow, under their armpit,
Aye.
Just give them a few scraps, keep them happy, and that's it. And even when it was years ago, it was anything, it came out like poll tax, council tax, anything like that. It was always up here, smoking ban up here, everything was, we'll try it out in this we place up the top of the country here.
Right.
Here it works, and that's what really, when I think of bits, that's what really wants me to say, well, we want to stand on our own, have our own, we're up there with the rest of them.
Aye.
You see, because we were always like the guinea pigs.
Aye.
Well, you'll know that yourself.
Aye.
I mean, everything was put up here to try it out.
Oh, I know.
But as I say, what my biggest fear is, like the youngest ones as well. I mean, Chris, all they need to do is have a rerun of Bravehearts and all, vote yes, Ken.
Maybe that's the plan.
And this is it. Oh, listen, it's getting Ken. But as I say, I really didn't ken. And as I was saying, I would say maybe 70-30 against it at the moment. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm getting there. I listen to Maisty. I try not to listen to the telly because I can't bother with it. I'd rather read it for myself in the paper.
Indeed.
And I ken the papers didn't give the true story, because what they didn't ken, they make up.
That's it, I know, it's just
but when you sit down and you try to learn to benefit yourself, to learn more about it on the television, and then you get them starting to argue with each other about this and then you never get an answer. You can ask them as many questions as you want, but you'll never get a straight answer. And then you think, well, what's the point, Ken? I didn't see any point in it.
I know.